I've noticed that before myself. We also have Courtney on that, apparently. Right in the front.
In 2012, a group of men who regularly played pickup soccer in Cornwall, New York, were chatting at Two Alice's Coffee Lounge. There, Alberto, Bobek, Colin, and Steve hatched an idea that would eventually become Cornwall United ETERNO Football Club. They joined the Hudson Valley's Over 40 League, announced their formation officially, and began the ETERNO story. There isn't too much footage from these early years other than a handful of spontaneous video clips and photos, but things would eventually change. In the fall of 2014, a soccer addict from New York City started looking for a league that played on grass fields to extend his playing days. At 39, he just recovered from hip replacement surgery, and the artificial turf of New York City wasn't very comfortable on his aging joints. A Google search led him to find that same 2012 article from the Pounding days, and he joined ETERNO for their first game after his 40th birthday. At first, some weren't so sure about the GoPro cameras, but they arrived at the perfect time. ETERNO won that first filmed game 6-0 over Hudson River. It was a dominant and inspiring performance all around, and folks warmed up to the cameras right away. Unfortunately, that would be the only win of the spring, as Cornwall would follow that win with losses to LaGrange, Beekman, the Hudson Legends, and Olympia Newburgh. But the men from Cornwall were starting to click, and they were certainly finding the back of the net more frequently. Even in the losses, there were flashes of brilliance. They would eventually score in every single game that spring, even against better teams. And, at the same time, John was regularly making huge saves in goal. The team was truly having a great time, and it was clear that things were looking up for Cornwall ETERNO. Due to the videographer's ruptured Achilles suffered during the league's summer tournament, there was no video from the fall half of the 2015-2016 season. Defensively, the team was solid that fall, but the goals weren't coming. Still, things looked up when spring rolled around as ETERNO started off with a thrilling draw against Inter Rhinebeck on a dramatic late own goal. Unfortunately, this was followed by losses away to Germania, away to Hudson Valley, and at home to Beekman. But ETERNO was again starting to score some goals, and they would bounce back to finish the season strong. They came together for a strong team win against Locomotive, which featured an absolute bomb of a goal by Aaron. After that, ETERNO completed the double over Hudson River at home with a big 5-1 win in front of many friends and family. Then they gave Hudson Valley a little scare before falling in the final game of spring. While they were still near the bottom of the table, they closed out the season with some style, and big things were on the horizon. The 2016-2017 season is when ETERNO truly started to turn things around. Steve had started coaching the team again while he recovered from knee surgery, and some new recruits to the midfield, including a guitar-playing Portuguese professor, led to more creativity and control. The season started brightly as ETERNO beat Locomotive and Aaron repeated his feat from the spring. Next came a loss to a new team, Mayopac, in a game with only a handful of highlights. Germania made it 2 losses in a row, but ETERNO gave them a battle. That momentum led to a late, dramatic winner at home over Inter Rhinebeck. ETERNO then took care of LaGrange. They scrapped for a 1-0 win as Josh scored the winner on his birthday. They drew a tough away contest with Beekman. And they finished the fall beating LaGrange on the road convincingly, 5-1, in a game that left Frank, the LaGrange keeper, quite frustrated. Things were looking good going into the winter break. ETERNO started this spring at home against the defending champs. On a messy field, ETERNO had a goal controversially called off. Fortunately, Bobek's long-range strike secured a point from the contest. Next came a rough trip away to Inter Rheinbeck. Fortunately, ETERNO finished the spring in scorching form. First, ETERNO again completed the double over Hudson River. Next, ETERNO won a back-and-forth contest against Locomotive with a late header. After that, ETERNO came back home where they got sweet revenge on Mayopac with a solid 5-1 win. And they completed the season with a hard-fought win against a pesky Beekman side. The fans were happy.
Hey, they are doing great up there.
And ETERNO had finished in second place by only 4 points. They had reason to be proud. The 2017-2018 season began with more strong recruits. Armando and Josh added to the defense, while Slav and Stash added strength to the midfield. The season began with a goal inside of 30 seconds. ETERNO would keep scoring, and they'd win big over Hudson River. Next, ETERNO won convincingly on the road at Germania. This was a huge win as they'd beaten the champs on their home field. Colin shined in his new role between the posts. A stylish win at home against Inter Rheinbeck followed. After that, ETERNO ran all over Mayopac in a 5-goal explosion on the road. This one included a near brawl, red cards for both teams, and some revenge. And the result made it 12 points out of 12 to start the season. Things were going so well that ETERNO even grabbed a late equalizer in their state cup game. This led to a shootout during which John was not beaten once in goal. The team was certainly riding a high. Sadly, an attendance crisis led to a home loss against Beekman. But ETERNO then edged a pesky Locomotive side that made it close. Unfortunately, that was followed by a league loss to Mayopac Falls despite 2 ETERNO goals from way outside the box. Next came a cup game against Division A Croton, and ETERNO twice gave them a scare before eventually losing. And finally, a rainy away win at LaGrange meant that ETERNO were still in the title race entering the winter break. The spring half of the season did not disappoint. ETERNO kept it close as they started the spring with a draw against leaders Mayopac Falls. The following week, they did the double over Germania with a tight home win that featured some spectacular goalkeeping. ETERNO was really rolling, and the fans were again enjoying the show. Next, they convincingly beat Mayopac in the rain with Eric as a makeshift ref. Then it was victory over Locomotive in a tight 2-1 affair. After that, ETERNO traveled to Hudson River where they cruised to a 6-0 win. Finally, LaGrange came to town, and ETERNO won easily 5-0. They were still rolling. And it should be noted that Stash beat the keeper from both 30 yards and 40 yards in this one. At this point, it all came down to a day in June. ETERNO had to beat rivals Inter Rheinbeck in a physical game on the road, and they scored first to make it 1-0. Rheinbeck had many chances in the second half. I'll let this guy show you how frustrated they were. Eventually, when the final whistle came, ETERNO had the 3 points. Sadly, first place Mayopac Falls also won to guarantee them the league title by 1 single point. It was closer than ever before, but it still wasn't a title. After Brian pulled this off at a summer team party, the 2018-2019 season started with a victory and clean sheet against New Paltz. Unfortunately, new team Putnam Valley crushed ETERNO both figuratively and literally. Next, the Geordies beat ETERNO and kept them from scoring for the first time in years. But while fall of 2018 was a mess, it did end with a thoroughly enjoyable blowout over Beekman at home, 7-0. Spring began with new ETERNO branded kits and sharp white shorts. The first game of spring was away at New Paltz, and ETERNO made those new kits look good with a 4-2 victory after a slow first half. They fought hard to earn a draw at Inter Rhinebeck. After the road trip was complete, ETERNO returned home. The LaGrange goalkeeper, Frank, wasn't smiling for very long as ETERNO put 5 goals past him that afternoon. Additionally, John made a spectacular save on a penalty. That win was followed by another dominant victory over Mayopac, and ETERNO were in very good form. They started strong against Putnam Valley, but couldn't keep the lead. ETERNO then edged out Beekman on the road, 1-0. In a wildly entertaining and windy game at Hudson River, ETERNO were down at half, but Stash's ridiculous goal from kickoff started the second half comeback, and ETERNO eventually went on to win 6-4. The following weekend, ETERNO played a rare away and home doubleheader on a Saturday and Sunday. They would go on to win both games against Locomotive, 4-2 on Saturday and 4-3 on Sunday. Finally, to close out the season, ETERNO lost to Inter Rhinebeck at home in a game that featured this insane goal. They wore white kits for the game, but perhaps they should have been black as ETERNO finished the season in a disappointing 4th place. Fall of 2019 started off with a loss, as 1 goal wasn't enough against Locomotive. After that, ETERNO did return to their usual form. First, they took out Hudson River 4-1. Next, ETERNO defeated Putnam, a rebranded version of the Mayopac team, 3-1. The score was the same the following week as ETERNO also took care of Beekman at home. Next, ETERNO lost in the Cup despite Herculean efforts by Colin and John at goal. After that, they traveled to Croton, where a legendary Christie highlight gave ETERNO something to remember in a big loss. The next game was extremely eventful. ETERNO somehow went down 3-0 to a New Paltz side playing with only 9 men. While they did turn it around in the second half and pull out a last-minute 4-3 victory, there was internal drama that ultimately made this win bittersweet. Still, ETERNO finished strong. They won big at home against Inter Rhinebeck, and they defeated LaGrange to climb into the title race as the fall half of the season concluded. Unfortunately, Stash and the videographer had unknowingly played their final games for ETERNO due to summer moves out of the state, as the spring half of the season was cancelled due to the COVID-19 pandemic. It was an anticlimactic end to the season. The extended time off ended up serving the team well. Several veterans got together and strategized, and some key changes were made that would improve the team in many ways. First, the team split the oversized squad into an over 40 and an over 50 team to maximize playing time and to keep the team fresh. Second, significant effort was put into recruiting new, skilled players. And these players were quickly integrated with ETERNO's strong core of returning players. The new look over 40 squad started a bit slowly. ETERNO only took 4 points from the first 12 available. But starting on Halloween, ETERNO would finally start to click, and from there, they were absolutely unstoppable. They would finish the season with 8 consecutive league wins. During this epic stretch of games, they would outscore opponents 40-9, and they were clearly enjoying their football.
All right!
Because of their perfect spring half of the season, ETERNO would eventually overtake both Croton and the Geordies in the league standings. They would ultimately, finally, win the Division B title for the first time in the team's history. And the ETERNO family was there to celebrate the team's success. If the legacy tables are to be believed, ETERNO's over 40 team has won 68 league games and scored 322 league goals over the last decade. They've formed an over 50 team that is rapidly finding its form, and there are plans for further expansion. Surely, there is more to come from Cornwall ETERNO.
Cornwall player
How does it feel to see the hardware here in Cornwall? It's here in your hand, Aaron. What are you thinking?
Well, I feel a little odd wearing a Tottenham jersey, holding a trophy. You know, not many people are used to seeing that, but it feels pretty good.
Josh Enslin, longtime organizer, team player, center fielder. How are you feeling right now?
Feeling good, feeling good.
You're looking good. Todd, he's looking good.
You're looking good too, lad.
Thanks. I was waiting for that. Back to you, Todd.